Hello, friends. Welcome to the Hydro Chronicle podcast with your host, Rich Hamilton.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the show. On today's podcast, we have the man himself, the president and the co-founder of the bucket company, Frank Escabado. This guy was a complete legend. I had the best time talking to him. He's so interesting, innovative, and is here over in the UK promoting his products and his brand. Really interesting guy, and I had a great conversation. I hope you enjoy it. So Frank, big thank you for coming on the podcast. I know that you're super busy. So how's it going?
Oh, my pleasure, Rich. My pleasure. You kidding me? I wouldn't have missed this for the world. Boots on the ground and trying to, make the contacts directly with, other shop owners and, give them a little bit of understanding of what we do and why we're here.
That's so important. We met maybe 2 years ago at MJ Biz.
Yes, sir.
At the show. Sir. And what really struck me at the show was the amount of people that you had on the booth and the knowledge that they had. It was just exceptional. It was really good. And your product looked fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. I usually surround all my guys around me or, maybe some of the women. Usually they have all the hands-on. After 20 years or so of in the industry, that you got to have, be surrounded with people like that around you, because if not, it's just, you're not going to give out any other details and information that, the novice are up to. And, there are about 1 million questions or so that everybody's always coming up and asking. And so,
yeah, you're quite a family-run business as well, aren't you?
Yes.
So you're the vice president and founder?
Well, actually, I am the president, and, not by choice. I'm more of a designer and more of an engineer type. I rather not be the face. But for the moment now, yes, I'm definitely a hard worker. I push. And like I said, I put my boots in the ground and, I start surrounding and molding people that are new in the industry, because it's almost very difficult to get somebody from a different part of an industry or somebody that's been trained by somebody else.
Right.
And then, try to have him forget all his, bad ways and try to focus some of the new ways, and the new technologies that have come about.
Yeah, definitely. So the bucket company, where did it all start?
The bucket company probably started about, I would say, 3.5 years ago as a concept. I've always had a lot of agriculture experience and dealt with a lot of problems and seen a lot of problems that could be fixed. One of the funny things is that, when we sat down with our engineers 3.5 years ago, my engineer, George, he actually designed submarines for the U.S. Navy.
Wow. Down
in the United States. And we're all from Florida. So we all understand draft. We all understand water. So, we went ahead and we tried to tackle, the agriculture industry and, reinvent the wheel, basically. And it was kind of like the idea of the Americans when, the Russians were kind of like way ahead of us in the space, technology. So we went back and we revisited and we said, okay, let's go for the moon, because everything else was kind of conquered at that point. So that would put everybody on a even playing field. And we thought that, well, you know what? The market is so far ahead of us right now, and these big corporations really dominate the industry.
They do.
And they dominate them by, relabeling and renaming their products as other products. So, your consumers don't know that, you're buying them from the big corporations.
And that's so important. We've been in the hydro shows and hydro business for as long as I have. Every hydro show, you always get the end users coming in and they say, well, what's new? What's new? And so many times it's the same wheel, just painted a different color.
Yes, sir.
So it's just fantastic to get someone who's innovative, who's earned the stripes, who's done what they've done, and they've got hands-on experience in order to design and craft a product that's specifically for the grower. So it's made by the grower, for the grower, I would guess, yeah?
Yeah, yes. And they actually kind of, it's a little bit of a monopoly. And it's kind of like it's almost like a club, if you're allowed in or not. And, basically turnaround margins and, that's the bottom line at the end of the day. So, for you to bust into the market or the industry, you have to have not only a good product and a good following, but at the same time, you have to have some financials behind you, because if not, you'll be drowned in the first year or so trying to get into the market. And it's pretty difficult because, you got certain companies that dominate, certain countries.
And distributors.
And distributors, and so if they got something that's maybe anywhere near something that you like, or they fear that you're kind of like a big competition for them, they'll kind of just hold you down and see if, maybe you run out of gas somehow.
Yeah,
And it happens to a lot.
Yeah, it does happen to a lot. And that's a shame because the end user then actually misses out.
Yeah.
So their yields and their crops are coming down, and it's almost sort of like they're being put in that corporate spin.
Yeah.
And it's not to the benefit of them, it's to the benefit of the purses of the corporate companies, and it's never good.
In capitalism, it's never good for the end user.
No.
It's always the bottom line.
Yeah.
So it's always, nutrients, how much can we flip, how much can we get for them, all of the high-end stuff that could be, just like, and it kind of, in a global market, it's kind of like the same thing. How many Pepsis or how many Cokes can you drink in a day compared to, how other products can you, some products are just made to, if they're well built and they're well made, you might only buy one or maybe two, for your lifetime. And that's something that they kind of shy away from because, unless the popularity of it's there.
Yeah. So your product, can you just explain a little bit about the product and the product range that you have?
Of course.
And I know that you've, you designed it, and that's super impressive, but you've also put those security measures by putting patents in there as well.
Yes, sir.
Which I think a lot of the big corporations do, but they don't tell anyone straight away because they want to get those patents in first before. So it's good that you're protecting your product.
Yeah. Actually, it started by trial and error. Being, hands-on, I ran into so many issues. First of all, when you water a plant, as Mother Nature does it, she basically sprinkles her waters onto the plants and onto the trees.
Yeah.
It doesn't come out of a hose that has 32 PSI or I don't know how many bars, and et cetera, et cetera. So as you do this and you have a large variety of maybe plants and amount, size, and stuff, would take up a lot of time. So I found out that most helpers would just try to fill each bucket up or fill each plant as fast as I can, and it actually wasn't helping at all. So we tried to come out and devise a different way of how to do things. And first of all, we looked at it, we said, okay, well, let's reinvent the wheel. Everybody in the new industries are all chasing, certain parts of the industry, if it's electronics or if it's nutrients or if it's, the big money stuff. But we kind of kept it simple because we knew all the problems that come with the electronics and the lockups of nutrients and the battles between the corporations and the distributors in each country and the manufacturers. So we went back and we said, you know what, let's play with plastics.
Right.
Plastic is something that, if it has a scratch, nobody minds. It's going to definitely be affordable. So we said, okay, well, a planter in its original form doesn't really give you that sense of that's what it was made for. Actually, a round cylinder where the planter came from or was it invented from was actually to carry liquids.
Right.
And that's why all buckets are considered gallons. So because anything that has a hole wouldn't be considered gallons because it wouldn't be able to hold any liquids.
Okay, right.
So, we started playing with that at first. So we ended up calling ourselves the Bucket Company. So we could kind of like joke and make fun of ourselves.
It's a cool name.
Yeah, and it's a catchy one, but it is actually not a bucket because it has a hole in the bottom. So, if you're trying to, catch some water with it or whatever, it's not going to do any good because it's going to pour out the other end. So we started playing with that and we figured, okay, well, round was a good shape because round is a cylinder. So round and, engineering wise, round doesn't have any corners or any points where it could fracture or it could break apart. Round is also not a good thing when you consider that every parcel or every agriculture landscape is usually rectangle or square.
Right.
So round was something that we knew that it was just used for, moving liquids, shipping from seas to seas. So we said, okay, well, let's take a stab at this. And then when you put round cylinders in a square area, you're going to lose a lot of cubic feet.
Right.
So we said, okay, let's take apart and let's do a square planter. But what we do is that we'll keep the integrity of the structure and we'll just round off the corners of the planter itself. So that way you still have the benefits of a round cylinder, but actually the shape of square, and you actually use a lot more cubic feet inside of a room.
Right, so you can actually fit a lot more in just by having it square. You're using those dimensions of the grow, right?
Yes. And they're designed basically with air channels and stuff. So, anybody that understands, once you start, and as you see, the evolution of indoor micro gardens and everything that's going indoors, you're trying to use and you're trying to utilize as much space as you can.
Yeah.
And, some of the other products that are out there kind of they hamper a little bit, and they might not excel, I guess, to say the word the best possible way.
Yeah. So how simple is to set up the system? Say if you wanted to go from like a one-pot system,
Yes, sir.
how simple would that be to set up?
Okay, well, actually, we went ahead and we've included just about everything in a pot. As we spoke about the bucket, we also thought that, okay, a lot of the planters that were made were just transition points. They were made to grab a plant from a bucket and then put it into the ground. Now that a plant lives its whole life term inside of a planter slash bucket, you had to make some changes. As you look at a planter, the bigger it gets, the holes for the discharge get further and further away from the middle of the pot.
Right.
So that means that the middle of the pot, as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, stays a lot more moist, damp, wet. You get a lot of root rots, you get a lot of problems out of that. So we went ahead and tried to figure out what to do about that. So, we had some molded plastic balls at the bottom of the bucket to make sure that, once the medium is saturated, it wouldn't compress at the bottom and it would still release as much water as possible. Now, talking about our kits and how they come, you basically, all you need is a pair of scissors.
Right. So you don't need any screwdriver or anything else to put it together? It's all...
No. To all respect to IKEA, no, we don't add Allen wrenches to our systems.
Well, that's good. That's what the people want. They want the ease of use and they want it to put together, They want it simple and easy to put together.
Yeah, that's where we came out with the Easy Peasy logo, So,
I love that.
I mean, so it's funny how you just see it everywhere now and that's what it is. I mean, you're talking about people that might have had 20 years of experience, and now you're thrusting them now and into this day, and they want to get involved. It's hard for you to teach somebody 20 years, and a lot of people don't have the time to, but they might want to grow their own vegetables, rooftops, and anywhere else. I actually have a garden up on top of my roof in Miami. So, what we try to do is just simplify everything for them. And for them, it's just a plug and play. That's all you need. It's just a pair of scissors, you cut.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
And what about the plastics that's actually made out? I was reading last night that you have a special mix in the plastic that the pots are actually made of.
Yeah, actually, when this whole environment of antimicrobials came in, and you see antimicrobial rugs at the airports and, antimicrobial...
chopping boards
and the liquids, everybody for like about, I don't know how many years, all of a sudden had the little antimicrobial liquids and hand sanitizers on their keychains. So it became this overwhelming, now nobody drinks water out of a faucet. It's like it's, this certain now bottled water that they have to drink, or they think that they might decay somehow. We went ahead and I sat down with a stem cell research doctor from the University of Miami.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his name is Kevin. And
shout outs to Kevin.
Yeah, shout outs to Kevin. He's actually doing a lot better things right now with the cancers and the research that he's doing on those kind of things. And he actually devoted some time with me to sit down and give me an understanding of which way and how would this work. So when I first started, I started working with antimicrobials, and my first question was, okay, well, antimicrobials usually are all parts of metals. Right. So you have silver, copper, zincs, and stuff like that. But now when it gets to which metals you use, silver and silver ions, and basically silver ions is silver that is a metal that's distilled in water so evenly that you cannot, it's basically the particles are just mixed evenly with the formula or the water that you have provided for it.
I see.
Now, copper and zinc, you would have to use 4% compared to 2% silver. Now, that being said, that means that the integrity of the plastic gets a little bit warped in the sense that you're now adding a lot more other products into the plastic at the point of injection. So we obviously decided, okay, well, silver ions and silver colloid has been around for ages. It's been for staph infections. You could find it at your local drugstores and stuff like that. But and then we said, okay, well, does the silver become dormant once it's heated to a point that it's ready for injection? So
this is actually mixed in the plastic. So then you've incorporated that silver into the plastic before injection.
Yes.
Wow.
And we wanted to make sure that, even after heated, but since it was metal, it had no issues with it. So then we went on to start looking for, okay, now we need to, obviously we use polypropylene plastics, and then we went, okay, well, we need to go all the way with this. And there's different steps to go across this. First, we needed to go to the FDA.
Right.
And the FDA, basically what they approve is the colorant and the UV. That's a 5 to 10 year UV that's inside the plastic.
So just to recap, so the UV, that's the protection on the plastic that's put in there. So when they're under horticultural lighting, they're not going to break down or...
Exactly. They have a 5 to 10 year warranty on them. And FDA has to regulate what type of UV that you put in there and what type of colorant.
Right, okay.
Okay, so normally nobody ever wanted to use a white colorant on either any kind of trays or anything, and that's when you see the whole industry go to black.
Yeah.
And white is actually a lot better because it reflects a lot better.
Is it more expensive to go white?
Not at all. It was just a problem that people were having so much algae buildup on white trays because of the light and the light reflection.
Right, okay.
So they went ahead and said, instead of trying to combat that issue, they just took the easy way out and said, go to black.
Yeah.
Even though black does not reflect light, but for them it was the easiest choice. To me, I look at things and I'm like, well, you need to fix that, because if that's the best thing to do, then you got to go back and do it. If you leave a black car and a white car in the sun, which gets hotter? And that's exactly what happens inside the pot, and that's what happens with the root zones. You're going to have one root zone in a black pot, and the temperature of the root zones is going to be a lot higher than the white one. Since they couldn't control the algae issue, they've always just went to the black pot.
Yeah, because it's easier and cheap, and I suppose with the big distributors, that it's on this Excel document, that's what they want, the bottom line. So rather than innovate, like going back to what we said earlier, you're just painting the wheel a different color. It's just the same pot, stack them high and sell them out.
No complaints and no issues. So when we took that further, we said, okay, well, we need to test this, and then we also need to find an antimicrobial. Now we did the FDA, and we got all that on that side. So we use virgin plastics, we use FDA-approved white colorant, and we use FDA-approved UV. So now antimicrobial. Well, that's a whole tricky subject because antimicrobial needs to be registered with the EPA.
Right.
And that takes hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. And there's a lot of antimicrobials that are out there, but probably 99.9% of them have never been registered with the EPA.
I see.
We actually have a deal with Microblock that they actually make antimicrobial safe enough for toys, even for kids.
Wow.
So we made sure that the companies that we dealt with had their registrations, and we have a PCT patent worldwide on that pending, because we're the first ones to ever introduce an antimicrobial planter or anything that has to do with agriculture growing containers.
That's incredible. I think that's a game changer right there.
Yeah.
Having that's a game changer right there.
Yeah, and the patent office, the USPTO, has, they do a little bit of pushback. There was a Japanese company that had some kind of a pad or something that they would put underneath a flower pot. Right. And then, they had some silver in it or something. And they would wait till the roots grow out of the pot and then touch the pad, and then they would call it their beneficial factors or whatever. But, every idea comes from a prior idea.
Yeah. It's like an evolution.
Exactly. And if they're going to stop, the inventors from that, and then nothing would ever get invented again. So, and it costs a lot of money to do these things. So when, they push back like this sometimes, when you feel like you're completely right about what you've done, you just keep pushing forward and you figure it out. But, unfortunately, some people don't have the financial means to get there. So with us, at least, we've been lucky enough to keep pushing and to show that, say, hey, what they were doing was a secondary application.
Yeah.
We do it as a primary point. We do it at the point of injection. There is no two steps to this.
So it's actually inbuilt into the plastic already.
Into the plastic. And as the plastic, we all know, plastic basically wears down. It basically always gives a new coat of antimicrobial as the plastic over time deteriorates.
And that's probably being it white as well, because it's reflecting a lot of the UV as opposed to absorbing it like a black. A black would probably, I would guess, break down much faster because it's absorbing more of that UV. But with the white, you've got that reflection, so it's almost sort of slowly taking a sheen off.
Yeah.
And almost self-cleaning.
Yes. And you never know what you get with the other companies, because those agriculture planters are so mass-produced that UVs could be either implemented into the injection or not at all. So you don't know if you even have a planter that has UV in it. And you could get 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, it's all up to what the person feels like, they want to invest into this.
Yeah.
And that to me is the problem, is that they rather just push something and not look at, the new and the upcoming, evolution of where this market is going.
Product's going, yeah. So with the antimicrobial being in the pot, what sort of diseases and problems is that going to help with in the plant? So is that going to help against Pythium, root rot, diseases, bacteria?
Right now, root rot is something that we are attacking, but we cannot claim, because once our patent goes through,
yeah,
we have a EPA consultant out of Washington, D.C., Aaron, and she's actually been the head of the antimicrobial in the United States for over 20 years. Once we could get our patent, and then we could go ahead and move our funds to prove what the antimicrobial does to the root zone inside the flower pot.
Wow.
But in between then, we could only have done tests. So what we've had Biosyn labs that are actually on our website at www.thebucketcompany.com. And you could read about them. So there's actually one that's from Microchem, and they did like about, I think it was a 3-week, and they did, it was E. coli, it was, what else did they do? Gray mold, black mold, and maybe a couple other pathogens. And you could see the results immediately on their testing. And then we went ahead and we went another independent testing, because everybody's always going to come at, and look at you and say, hey, this. So we said, okay, we hired another company called Biosyn Lab. And basically we waited, and it's not as easy as just send everything over. They actually have to send over permission to the FDA to get cultures of these pathogens to be sent over.
Right. So you've got to breed that culture in it in order to test it.
And the FDA has to send it to them. So once they get it and they arrive, they basically they'll put out a 3-week period, and they'll have a sample, and then they'll just show parts of our plastics and pieces that they cut out of the buckets, and then they'll show samples over and photos over a 3-week period, and then an end results. And as you see on the first week, you'll start seeing the mold start growing on the sample. Just probably 25%. Second picture, you're probably talking about 60% growth on the sample, and then on the third week of the picture, you're probably talking about it's over 90% growth on the sample. And every picture that you see next to that, you don't see a speck on our plastics.
Wow, that's incredible. And that's all on the website?
Yes, that's all.
You can have a look at that on the website?
Yes, and we're definitely open, and we're very free. We actually share all of our information and who's our antimicrobial representative and everybody else, because this needs to be out in the open. This is not something that you keep it under the table.
Yeah, I think it's incredible. Just that aspect of that product is just incredible.
It's really impressive that one moment you're doing something, and then the next moment you're getting orders from New Zealand and companies from over there that have medical facilities, and they're asking you for and using your products, and that just gives you the validation that you...
Yeah, that must feel good, right? Because you're helping people. When it goes to medical and they're making something that's going to help somebody or save somebody's life, that's kind of giving back in a way that...
Yeah, and actually, if it was financials that I was chasing, I might have not even started the company. I think I was a lot better off with that.
It's great, because like I've said, you're innovative, you're interested in the market, you've earned your stripes in the market and the industry, and now you're here pushing through for a product that is fantastic. I think it's cream always rises to the top.
Yeah.
And when you've got something that you've designed from the ground up, that's your baby, it's fantastic. What sizes do they come in, the planters?
We make a 10-gallon. And what equivalent would be, I guess, would be 37 liters.
Yeah.
We also make a 3-gallon, and we also make a 1.2. And the cool things about them is that they all basically share their family pieces. So the valve from a 10-gallon will fit the valve of a 3 and a 1.
And that's universal across all sizes?
Universals all across sizes. And then in the interior of the pot, we figured, okay, well, we used to use cocoa as a medium, and soils are very dense medium. So we moved to cocoa, and even as you get to bigger planters and stuff, cocoa could get very compacted after a time.
Yeah.
So, that's why at the bottom of it, we not only added these molded balls to keep the bottom of the medium uneven and let as much water drip and get out of the planters as much as possible, but we also added a little drain that was kind of like about an inch above, underneath the floor of the bucket. So in order to make sure it could fully get out of there, and everything was sloped towards the bucket, towards the drain piece in the front. So all the water from the rear could move itself out and towards the front. And then we tried, and I think I was overseas, and we were introduced with the fabric pots, and then many different other items to put them as liners inside of our pots. But I figured, okay, well, I grabbed the felt pot and tried it. I wet it. When I put it on the scale when it was dry and wet, there was like a pound difference of moisture that it held. And that was a problem for me, because if you have 50, 100 of them inside of a room, now you have 50 to 100 gallons of water that's actually just not doing anything.
It's going to increase that humidity. It's going to put that through the roof.
And it's going to kick into the mold.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes, vegetables and stuff, people don't care. They just, put it out there, or maybe wipe it a little bit and just, sell it just because they don't want to lose the bottom dollar. But, the first tackle was, okay, well, how can we make this better? So, we're from Florida, and we've always, in Florida, it rains just about every day, almost kind of like here.
Yeah, like
But it was funny. I was one of the guys here, and it was like, well, in England, we have, all seasons every 15 minutes.
That's what they say. If you don't like the weather here in England, just wait 5 minutes, because it'll probably change. Yeah.
And it's been hilarious. But we came out with a screen that's basically made out of like a fiberglass polypro material that doesn't retain any water, and they're big enough for any salts or anything to pass through, not to get clogged up on a felt pot, and something.
Right, so it's got that mesh so things can pass through, as well as oxygen.
Yes.
Various different elements can pass through freely either way.
Yes. And at the end of the day, it has over 1,000 hoses, and in a pressurized room, airflow is so important that it goes actually into the pot, even though you might not see it. And with all those hoses exposed, it helps you dry the medium much quicker than sitting and seeing your tomatoes sitting there for about a week or so, and not being able to give it some fresh nutrients. And people that understand nutrients, nitrogen is probably one of the first ones to evaporate out of the soil, out of all the other ones, out of the P or the Ks. So, there's a lot of learning, and I think that, people are a lot smarter than before.
Yeah, I think the industry's moved forwards leaps and bounds, especially over the last sort of 10 years. It's gone through the roof, and the knowledge has gone through the roof.
Yeah, and I actually give a lot of credit to you guys, Rich, and all the other guys that are out there, putting the words out, and taking your time to do these interviews and go through these and basically bring out all the new innovations that are coming out in the industry.
Well, I just think it's so important for the end user and for people that are interested in the industry that maybe haven't even come into the industry, to meet people and listen to conversations like this, in order so they understand the principles behind the product. So as well as the product, the principles behind the product.
Yes.
I know that you've designed it from the start, and I believe I read last night that you give a portion of your profits over to charity. Is that right?
Yes. We try to always do giveaways. We actually have a Wounded Warrior planter that mostly around every Veterans Day we always try to give out and give back to all the veterans.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is that we were always compared to like the Dutch bucket, that is something that basically has a hole in the front and works.
It's dated, isn't it? It's old school.
Yeah, it's old school. So what we did was when we reinvented the wheel, we added all these air channels, we added the shape, and we added the marketing and the and that new era of what somebody would want their planter to kind of look like. And at the same time, we also had inserts at the bottom that you put pieces of PVCs as high as you want them. You could cut them as high as you want.
Right, so they're like stilts then. So you've got the bottom of the pot. If you imagine the bottom of the pot has got 4 corners, you've got sort of holes in there that you can then put PVC stilts in either side and then cut those to any height that you want, so you can raise them up off the floor.
Yeah.
So what would be the purpose and the benefit of raising it off the floor?
Gravity, elevation, and one of the biggest things, especially here in England, you guys have cold slabs, cold floors.
A lot of people grow on cold floors.
Yes, and elevating it off and insulating it away from those cold temperatures, and having the root, the medium and the root bound.
You also can have an airflow as well. You can have a much better airflow. If you're in a closed, growing environment,
of course,
and you've got that airflow just right,
of course.
I think a lot of people don't really look at under the canopy. Like hobbyist growers, they don't look at that airflow under the canopy as well. But if you can have that consistent airflow on the top, on the bottom, and around the bottom. It's going to be better for everyone.
Yeah, no doubt. And at the end of the day, if you go to our Instagram at the Bucket Company, we kind of make a little fun and a little poke out of it. Is, no mess, no stress. We actually build things that you don't have to go in with a wet back and pick up water off the floor and stuff like that. I mean, it's time to change the market and grow.
What's the best way to clean them then? As you're breaking down, let's say you finished a cycle, coming out and you're going back in. What would be the best way to clean your pots? Is it just water, soapy water, or just fresh water?
Actually, the old school ways was a certain percent of Clorox and stuff like that. Yeah. And I obviously don't recommend it because now there's such other products there that are less harmful and they wash away very easily. And the cool things about us is that we don't have to break down anything. You have an insert that you could just literally just pick up, take outside, and then everything else, since our systems are run with manifolds, you could put them on timers. So, basically you could just run some kind of a Clearex through the system for a little while, and basically you flush everything out, and that's one of the benefits that, when you get away from flood trays and stuff like that. Flood trays, over time, you keep feeding over flood trays. Well, as evaporations happen, a lot of the nutrients dry up on the flood trays.
They do, and they sort of calcify, don't they? So you get that crystal salty discharge.
Then the next time you feed, it's going to happen more, and then all of a sudden your ppm start rising, and people not aware. And then the cleaning, and if you have a pathogen that runs through there, it just actually wipes out all what you have sitting in that tray.
Right.
So, independent, and actually now we're on the next innovation we're working with a group from scientists from NOAA down in Florida, a National Oceanic Atmospheric. Basically we are developing some sensors that not only read your ppms and your pH on the way out of the bucket, but they also read your temperatures. And they also read the moisture contents in the middle of your bucket. And then on the top of your bucket, it also has a lumen sensors where they also could read how much lumens your lights are giving out. So there's no sense of, pain.
So that'll be like an automatic runoff reader, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, that's actually what we call a data logger. And it could actually log like about 20,000 plants in one room, RF, radio frequencies, into a hub with a memory card just in case if you lose power. And then from there, it could be hardwired into a computer, and then you could actually look over time, seeing what went on with certain ones in a certain row, and then so you could actually try to tackle the problem. Because when you go in a hospital, I mean, all the monitors and all the gadgets are on the patient.
It's not on the ward, is it? It's on the individual patient.
They're not worried about the temperatures in the hallways at the hospital. So we got to kind of like focus a little bit more. But I think the industry's changing. But I think that social medias, podcasts like you, Rich, the web, and everything else kind of like helps even the young manufacturers and the young innovators to bring out their products out there and let the people judge them on at their own merits and not be held back by big corporations.
I think that's the future. With what's happened in America with the corporate tsunami, it's killed and scared a lot of the people off. They're buying the smaller companies out and just ditching them so they can make a little bit more money. So we definitely need that innovation and that new generation coming through and bringing new products to the range. So just to go back to the data logger, let's say, for example, you've got 10 plants.
Yes, sir.
Each one of those would have a data logger on it.
Yes, sir.
So if you're in a room, you could see plant number 7, its runoff's running a little bit too high, and that will run on the data log.
Yeah.
Would you then be able to sort of say, let's say plant 8 is running, the runoff is running really high.
Yeah.
Could you set an alarm so if the runoff hit a certain number, it would notify you that it was going too high or too low?
Of course, you will have a live screen and showing you what each of them are doing. And if you see some of them that maybe the ppms or something on the out is having issues, with our system, that's the cool things about them, that not only do we have sprayers, not only are you able to raise the planters away from the ground, and talking about donations, we have a lot of guys that are war vets.
Yeah.
And,
What did actually work in the company?
No, they don't work with our company. We have one war vet that did work with us for a little while, but we have a lot of them that reach out through social media, and we want to make sure that, when it comes to Veterans Days and stuff like that, they get their systems, because a lot of them have benefited by adding maybe a PVC pipe maybe like about 2 to 3 feet high, and now they're able to use their wheelchairs and actually wheel their ways around their grows, and they're able to kind of they're not taken out of the game just because a flower pot is on the floor.
You know what? That is incredible. I had a conversation with Eric from Garden Culture magazine about 6 months ago about grow setups and grow environments and equipment for people that are disabled or in a wheelchair or have issues reaching down or reaching up. So to have something like that as soon as they've set it up, it's sort of their height,
yep.
So they can manage it. That's incredible.
Yeah, no bending. I mean, I see people, there's no sense of bending. I mean, we're in 2019, and so many things. I mean, we could get just about anywhere and around the world and do so many things that the little things to us is what counts. And it's obviously not doing the paper chasing with all the nutrients and all the big money. But we've been lucky enough that our products have speak for itself, and since the start of January, we have been now, like I said, we're just a year and a half old in the sense of releasing something. But immediately once we released the 10-gallon, we understood that we needed to come out with different sizes and custom fittings. And so we went ahead, and right now I think I hold like about 22, 24 molds.
Right.
For
Wow.
plastics, and I love engineering now, even though I was never a good classmate. But it's kind of like you.
But you're an intelligent guy. You don't need those academic qualifications and piece of paper to tell you that you're not an intelligent guy.
And Rich, you know what? Thank you for saying that, because most of people like us kind of judge ourselves on that. And
yeah.
we judge ourselves on the guys that have the papers and behind the walls to the guys that maybe never made it out of school, So, what I always say is just, keep it. And, your hustle is your hustle. And if you hustle more than the next man, and if you work harder than the next man, you will succeed. You need a lot of common sense, but you will succeed. And I mean, proof is in the pudding, and I'm a pusher. I'm definitely not, the same, I guess, main white collar guys that you might see in the industry. But
you're approachable, Frank. You own the company, like you say. You didn't have to do it. You're financially sorted. You're very stable. You've got a great company, innovation. But you're approachable. Every time I see you at shows, you're talking with everybody. You're interacting. You're not in that hydroponics, tower sort of. No one can speak to me. I'm super important. I've made X amount of money. You're not like that at all. You're on the ground with the troops every single day, every single show, sharing your knowledge and your product, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and that
we need more people like that.
Yeah, that's the best part. I started with nothing, and actually to get into this industry, if you go down in my social media pages, you'll probably see a white Ferrari and a white Mercedes back there. But all of that
Which Ferrari did you have?
Yeah, I had the California. It was it was a beautiful car.
Yeah.
They actually told me that but one thing, I actually had a big convertible fishing boat that I've taken around to South America, and I love to do the big things, but just for a very small time because I don't have that kind of a lifestyle to do it.
Yeah.
So it was just a very good experience, and to captain a boat, fly a plane, and have these fun things. But at the end of the day, what did I do? I traded all of it in for this. I have actually no car right now. I have no boat. And I'm probably the only guy in Miami that has a garage and a boathouse and has neither.
So that's incredible. So your chips in.
My chips are definitely in, and a great shout out to the Growers Wholesales that took us on in the UK, and we have Hortotech, in Spain, and Holland Forge in Australia, New Zealand, and we just keep growing and growing, and we're just trying to we're just trying to get further and further down the market, but get past these.
So you direct in the States?
We're direct in the States right now. It's a difficult situation. There's one big powerhouse there that we're trying to see how we could, but at the same time, keep the integrity of our company.
And that's so important.
And that's important. And that's something that I won't switch or flip for anything. We've gone here, by ourselves. And, we would love to, do what we need to do, but we won't sell ourselves just to get there.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That's fantastic. Well, the Growers Wholesale have been pushing it here in the UK, and I'm seeing it about. It's a great product.
Yeah,
I absolutely love it. Just going back to you saying about accessories, you've got accessories that you've got for it now.
Yeah.
Did I see that you're working on some supports, branch supports?
Yeah. Yeah, we actually created it's a trellis. It's basically a trellis system that basically the end users has. It comes with the PVC cutter, and
So does that fit actually onto the pot rather than the growing environment?
No, that one grows actually in a room. But
right.
Yes, we do on the 10 gallons. We do, since it's such a big pot. We do have these plastic supporters that actually, when we looked at it, everybody used to use bamboos to hold their plants up. But the one thing that they don't understand is bamboo comes from China, and they come in a plastic bag, and it's wood.
Yeah, and they're normally stored outside. I don't think a lot of people realise that those are stored outside as well. So they can have any sort of pathogens,
it already comes.
spider mite, aphids, molds, anything on there.
Yeah, the wood is already sweating while it's in the container, and it's in a plastic bag, and the moisture has nowhere to go. So as soon as you receive it, you will see a powdery mildew. And I used to see a lot of people just go ahead and dig that into their medium.
Yeah.
So we are like, okay, I understand that you need something to hold them, and I understand that they're cheap enough that's why people use them. So we created something like a Lego system, a modular system that you could just keep adding and playing with it as much as you want, and introduce those stakes from the outside of the pot instead of from the inside of the pot, and don't contaminate and don't bring any pathogens inside your mediums.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
The other thing about the bamboo is you don't know what that bamboo's been grown with. So that could, if you're growing, say, for medical purposes, that could have detrimental effects because there could be heavy metals in there. There could be, there could be PGRs in there. There could be anything in there, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so that's a smart move.
And it's wood. And, that's the last thing you want inside. It's wood, because wood would absorb any moisture that's in the room. So that's the worst thing you could do. And I see people, they do beds out of wood and 2x4s and stuff like that. And, you got to understand that's where the mold breeds, because once the moisture gets in the wood, it doesn't leave. The room will stay that, humidified for its time or whatever. And, that's where all the pathogens start, getting their growth at, little by little, and then they go airborne. And then once they go airborne, and people don't understand, when you see a mold on the wall or something, it might not have gone airborne yet. So, you might have time to eliminate it, but once it goes airborne, that's it. It's just going to stick around, and especially when you have fans blowing it everywhere and stuff. So
yeah, I think someone told me a long time ago, Jeffrey Winterbourne, I think, actually, mold's kind of like rust. When you see it, it's too late.
Yeah.
It's too late. It's there. And if you're growing, say, with a fabric tent that a lot of people in the UK do, they use grow tents.
Yeah.
Then as soon as that's embedded into that material, it's almost impossible to get it out. Almost impossible. And that's gonna have effects on every single cycle moving forward.
Yeah, and that's the whole key to it. That with our systems and our inserts, I would think that at least 60% of the water would run off in the first couple of seconds, and and with all the hosing and everything, we don't believe in drain trays. That's just ridiculous. Wet bags, drain trays, that's just breeding grounds. If you're outside, it's for mosquitoes and bugs, and if you're inside, it's definitely mold and algae. Yeah. Or a lot more work. And especially in a tent environment where you're supposed to seal it. The last thing you want to do is seal it with a whole bunch of moisture. So the best thing you could do for your plants is always get as much moisture out of there. And if it's piping it out and trapping it in a hose and letting it go out, but obviously never keep your reservoirs inside your tents or any kind of sub pumps or any kind of recovery pumps inside your tent. Make sure you get all the water out and keep the environment there as cool as possible.
So I've noticed as well, you've got a track system on one of your planters. So if you had like 4 planters, you could actually have a runoff tube coming out. So you could run to waste.
Yeah.
Put it on a time system from an outside reservoir. That would come through on a time system, and then any runoff would then go through the channel and then be taken out of the growing environment to either a waste or a waste reservoir. Yep.
We're the first company that, I've been to all the hardware stores, climbing up and down, looking for fittings, looking for all kinds of stuff. The guy's looking at me like saying, hey, what are you doing? You're in electrical. You're supposed to be here. And I'm like, just leave me alone. You don't know what I'm doing. So I kept going about doing my business. But when it comes about draining and draining all the water out of the systems, there's different parameters, and you can't just go to just one particular customer. one particular customer might have a drain on the floor somewhere nearby,
Right.
where they could just run the hoses and go right to there. And a lot of other systems are obviously not that friendly, and in the sense of that you don't have all these things just laying around, for your usage. So what you need to do is kind of like, okay, well, where do I do with the water? So we've developed now is basically a recovery pump that has a float on it. So whatever discharge, and people say, oh, you should have this much discharge, that much discharge. But if you really look at the prices of nutrients these days,
They're expensive.
I don't know how much discharge you want to really throwing away.
Yeah.
Because that's all money down the tubes, as they say. So the whole other thing about our insert is that it makes sure that as soon as some discharge just starts coming out, you could immediately stop feeding the plant.
Right.
While when you're using a regular planter, it usually takes about 5 to 10 minutes before it starts working its way out.
Yeah, so you get that saturation maximum bleed
Exactly.
point, and then a lot starts coming out because you're oversaturating it from the top. Yeah.
I was just going to go there with you, Rich, and you start saying, okay, well, I didn't do this bad because only this much came out, and then you go back 5 minutes later, and all of a sudden it's just pouring out of the, you're like, oh my gosh. Not only do you have a mess, not only do you have all this water contents inside your room, and then obviously your dehumidifiers now are ringing up your electrical bills, to try to get the room down to its point. And what most people don't understand is that when you turn off your lights and you turn off your air conditioner, your lights actually work as a dehumidifier because of the heat of the light bulb actually absorbs the moisture that's in the room.
Right.
So when the lights are on, that means that the air conditioners need to be on just to cool the lights. And when the air conditioners are on and the compressors are on, they also work as a dehumidifier. So once everything goes night, now all of a sudden the light bulbs and everything you might be using, the heat, now it doesn't, work for you as a dehumidifier. And now the air conditioner, you only might have one that kicks on every so often just to maintain temperature.
Keep a balance. Yeah.
The balance, and that isn't working. So basically you're putting, your plants into a night cycle that is worse than the day cycle.
Yeah.
And then you expect them to, to wake up the next morning and go to work all cheery.
It's never going to happen. No, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
And the other thing is as well that all those those runoff pieces and sections, they're all interchangeable throughout the sizes.
Yes.
Well, that's fantastic because you could buy, if you wanted to start and you've not started growing, you've not grown before, you could do it very affordable by buying a planter.
Yeah.
One planter.
Yep.
And then you could buy another planter that would maybe be a slightly different size.
Yep.
But you could use the same fittings for the same runoff, so it's cost effective as you expand your grow and your growing environment. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Actually, we're going to be there at this weekend at the expo. And
the Hydroponics Expo.
Yes, sir. And we're going to actually, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to connect a 10 gallon, a 3 gallon, and a 1.2 gallon, and I'm going to connect them with PVCs, hoses, and I'm going to connect them all together. And they're going to all hold a different medium.
Right, okay.
So I'm going to let people see that not only can you do it with, the hydrotone rocks and the cocoa and the soil, you could also do flood to drain. Yeah, so, it's all about your knowledge and your preference. And I don't want to get involved in that. And the last thing to get involved is to actually get into, a grower, hey, everybody knows everything. So some are willing to listen. Yeah. And, if that's the case, you try to help out, and you don't have all the information. There's a lot of people with a lot of knowledge out there. So,
sure.
At least for us, and when it comes to the bucket world, we're pretty good at what we do.
So it's almost like a Swiss Army knife for growing, isn't it?
Yes.
It's just got multiple uses.
Yes.
And you can use it for anything, any style. So it's not, if you just hand-fed run to waste, people will just use a standard pot.
Yep.
If they're running a bubbler, they'll run a different pot. But with your pot, you've got everything. You've got everything in one pot.
Yep, and I think most of the growers will identify that certain systems have different results, and I found that hydroponics and either using clay pebbles, what we used to call them back then, to maybe shredded rock wool that had a lot of algae problems on the surface or whatever, and gnats between both of them. That's kind of like what you have with the hydroponic system. But actually, your fruits ended up coming a lot nicer looking.
Right.
And then, soil is more of a easier way and more of a, easier going for the person, but it's not as nice looking. And then I guess cocoa is kind of like intermediate. You know, so when we used cocoa for a while and using our insert, we were like, okay, well, we wanted to create the same output as what cocoa and soil did, but we also wanted to give out the same look as what hydroponics did.
Right.
Because the hydroponics is just recirculating fresh nutrients all the time. So how do we go about that? Well, the only way we could do that is if we could feed more often. And in soil, it's probably not a good thing.
No, you need that dry period.
Exactly. And then cocoa, you know, what is funny in cocoa is that, you know, and I've spoken to all the big guys at Canada, very good guys from all the way to West Coast, Spannabis and here and there. And they tell you that they use some of the hydrotone rocks on the bottom to try to keep the cocoa elevated so it could drain properly.
Yeah, and so it doesn't compress as well.
It doesn't compress. And then that's where we got rid of that idea and we put molded plastic balls in there because they don't understand that those rocks are high acidity. Cocoa is kind of like neutral, while when you use hydrotone rocks and they're very high acidity and the pH level rises a lot.
Yeah.
So to keep it just uniformed, we kept it all just cocoa and just molded the balls instead of the rocks, just molded it into the bucket. So that way you didn't have to add that layer of rocks or add that layer of acidity into your medium. And at the same time with the insert, we wanted to do a hybrid in between that cocoa. Yeah, I know it's very aerated and you could feed it and it drains. But with our inserts, we were trying to get to the point that we're feeding it twice a day.
Okay.
So instead of going ahead and feeding it, let's say if the plant takes 3 gallons in a day or whatever, we would do, and we're working with a certain company right now, a commercial company, that we do 1.5 gallons in the day.
Yeah.
And then 1.5 gallon in the afternoon.
Right, that's interesting.
And it keeps the humidity level in check the whole day around. So there is no spike on humidity, and they actually have check valves where they could isolate each row and feed. And since our manifolds feed 1 gallon a minute, basically in 3 to 4 minutes, you fed everything that you needed to do. So you have the luxury of splitting apart and you're doing different zone by zones.
You, like you say as well, you're also not just giving it that one big feed. I mean, we don't feed once a day, you know. You're separating that feed, so you're making that plant work, and you're making that the nutrients take up quicker into the nutrients because you're giving it slow and steady. Here's a little bit now, hang on, and then you give a little bit later on, rather than just it in one big hit.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the proper way to do it. It's almost like common sense as humans.
Yeah.
You know, you feed, certain things certain times of day as they work through the day. I mean, it's like a construction worker out in the hot sun. You give him breakfast and you don't give him lunch and you expect him to work at 100-degree weather, throughout the whole day. I think he's going to pass out at the end of the day, So, and plants have the same issues. So,
It's interesting as well, the bottom of the pots with those balls that you're going on, because there's no sharp corners.
No sharp corner.
You've got that, if you've got roots that are direct touching that pot, they're going to grow right back up as well, aren't they? They're not going to sort of stub. They're going to sort of redirect back into the root mass towards the rhizome.
Yes, and exactly when you say the sharp corners, it's kind of pretty funny because since we are boaters, you will never find a sharp corner on a boat.
Right. Okay. I'm not a boat guy, so I don't know. Right?
Well, if you ever notice, you'll never find a sharp corner on a boat because running into a sharp corner is very painful.
Right.
So corners on boats are all rounded. So if you do bump into one, it's kind of like sideways, and you keep going instead of getting stuck with the corner on you.
Right.
So, yes, exactly that. We definitely didn't want to design anything with corners. And what's funny is that we have guys that will veg on a 1.2 gallon, and then they will basically pick up the insert, pick it up, go to a 10 gallon, put some cocoa or whatever medium they're using at the time, maybe halfway, and then they would just lightly place the 1 gallon insert right inside and then backfill the rest of it with cocoa. And the plant never has to even be transplanted. It basically just got transplanted without ever disturbing the root zones.
That's incredible.
And that's what the problem is, that when they use those plastic pots, they flip them over. And sometimes the medium is a little dry, or you got to get it right.
Sometimes they even dry it out a little bit just so it's easier to do that transplant, but it causes huge stress to the plant. The plant doesn't like light, doesn't want to be bent. The roots do not want to be touched, basically.
Yeah, and you also sometimes end up with a whole bunch of spaghettis in your hand because the whole medium just breaks apart. And then
for the next 2 weeks after that, the plant's going to concentrate on repairing those broken roots.
Yes, sir.
And then that's probably going to take some energy away from the fruits, which is going to affect your yields in in the long run.
Yeah, yep. And I mean, there's so many attributes that we included that I know it's going to take a lot of time. And some people kind of like overlook things. But, when they start understanding that rooms are pressurized, and when they say that, what do you mean pressurized? With what? Every room is pressurized, meaning as if sometimes your door is almost closed and the air conditioner turns on, and then all of a sudden the door closes. You're in a pressurized room, negative or positive pressure. That works in both ways. And our buckets are basically molded with air channels. So with the balls at the bottom and the air channels on the side, it always lets airflow go through, even though you don't see it, go through the bucket, down through the bottom of the bucket and around the sides to help better dry your media so you could get ready not only for you to avoid any root rot, but at the same time, hit them up again.
It'll be interesting to see some tests side by side with those air channels and just sort of dry, how long it actually takes that moisture to dry out in there.
Yeah. And actually, we're gonna do it. Actually, you get a lot of pushback in social media when you do side by sides.
You gotta forget the haters on social media.
Yeah, I think that it's funny that they all want us to be this one happy family when you're trying to introduce that hey things have changed. And it's not about talking bad about a product. It's about just like the commercials when they give you 3 cans of sodas to test. And you tested the one that you liked, and they lifted it up, and they showed you which one it was.
Yeah.
This ain't about testing. It's not about your personal preference. This is about results.
Yeah, 100%. It's about results. And time is moving on, and, your pots, I see them as almost like the Formula One car of planters.
Yeah, and we've tried to keep the price down, and we have some work to do here with our locals, our distributors worldwide, and because that's one thing that we want to make sure that they're accessible to everyone.
And that's the point. You've got to have that price point. You've got to have that price point.
Yes.
I know it must be so expensive to innovate the market like you are and push forwards, and there must be a lot of resistance. You go back to the boat thing. It's you're the first boat going through the sea, and you're pushing your way as hard as you can, and it's got to be expensive and taxing, but you're here and you're doing it.
Yeah, and I give a lot of respect for everybody that's paved the ways, and all the guys that are out there, and there's so many people that are just grinding so much harder than we are. We were blessed with with some capital to move forward, and you just got some guys that are just road warriors. Yeah. They believe in a product and they go store to store and this and that. And what's happening in the industry is a lot of the stores are, they're shunning and the stores that have the buying power, they're going straight to, China and buying things overseas.
Well, that's what we're finding loads here in the UK. So I was going to ask you, before we go into that, what have you seen whilst you've been in the UK? What are the big difference here with the UK hydroponic stores and say like the US stores?
Okay, well, in the UK, they basically got their way of doing things.
Right.
And I hear a lot of flood and drain. Flood the chamber, drain the chamber, flood the drain.
Yeah.
So I just think that it's just because of a little bit of lack of experience, because, the U.S. has been so forefront on that ground that the evolution of it has just taken off so many different ways. And I think in the UK, it's happening as we speak right now, and especially on the social media, maybe not on how the UK looks at the markets, but at least for the US, it has taken such a burden. And I hope that it's used for the right proceeds, because now the federal government doesn't have to bail out all these states and all these Midwest states that have no money for infrastructures and stuff like that, and they're using all the capitals and stuff like that. But you tend to think that somehow they're gonna miswaste the money, and not put it to what we needed is us and education and healthcare and stuff like that.
I think it's so important with education, especially in the hydroponics industry moving forward. Anyone that has that knowledge, they need to sort of represent and step forward and share that knowledge.
Yeah.
There's so much to learn, and I don't know everything.
Nobody does.
I see myself, although I've done the books, I see myself as a dummy, because I constantly want to learn. I understand how much I don't know, and that gives me a hunger for wanting information and wanting innovation and wanting the industry and the products to move forwards.
Yeah, Rich, well, I would never consider anybody that's eager to learn a dummy. A dummy is a person that doesn't want to learn.
Yeah.
A dummy is the one that's stuck on its traits and not willing to open their ears and just, you can't listen when your mouth is open.
Yeah, so true.
So a lot of people it's just about that. And when we first started hitting the circuit with all these shows and spending all this kind of money, and just basically sizing ourselves up, saying, you're not gonna hold us down. I understand we're the new kids on the block. I understand that we come with a completely different thing, and but at the end of the day, we're not looking out for you guys. I mean, we need to make it happen with you guys, but in the future, there's going to be a lot of other, ways to get your products out to the market.
Well, already, I mean, look at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, that big sort of corporate things falling. I know in America, there's big companies there that are sort of dominating the market.
Yes.
And it's like a poker game, it's like Texas Hold'em. They've just got the most amount of chips.
Yep.
So they're just trying to, maybe they're trying to bluff everybody out of the market.
Yep.
And that's sort of stopping other people coming to the table, which is a shame.
Yep.
But yeah, that's fantastic. So your distributors, do you want to give a shout out to your distributors around the world again, just so they know if people are interested in the product, if they want to find out more, where to head?
We're here with the Growers Wholesale, George, the crew.
Yeah, George is a good guy. They just took James on. James is an awesome guy, real cool guy.
Yeah, and it's
Mike's cool as well. Mike's awesome.
They're hilarious bunch of guys, man. I mean, it's probably one of the funnest crews that I've run into so far.
Yeah.
Because they're just so laid back, and everybody's just about kicking in. We're all old school, so there's not no corporate head trying to just bottom line kind of thing at the moment. And UK is a little bit different, but in Canada we have Rambridge that distributes us over there. In in New Zealand and Australia we have Holland Forge.
Okay.
And Hortotech with Nacho in Spain, and they also do Chile. So we're just getting around and spreading our wings. We've had some conversations with Hawthorne, but things develop as they develop, and our main goal is to get the users, the end users, to enjoy the product and basically learn about the product, and then everything else should fall in place.
Yeah, I mean, the industry should be a family.
Yeah.
And you're always going to bash heads every now and again with people like you do in a family.
Yeah.
But for the greater good, it's a family.
Yes,
we
it
should
is.
all support each other.
Yes, it is.
100%.
And I'm actually, you can walk up to me at any time. My business cards has my cell phone number.
I noticed that on the website it has your cell phone number as well, which is incredible.
If you want to call and scream at me for something, or if you want to say something nice, it's it's all good.
Yeah.
I could take it. I've had a hard life, so I could take whatever.
You got thick skin.
Yeah, I got a very thick skin. So. And I want to know, and I want to let people know that I don't hide behind extensions. You want to contact me, you want to ask me something. I'm very active on Instagram. My son is the one that runs it. But any questions about setups, we're actually going to right now implement not only new products in the next month. We're doing out these free hoodies for the UK and all the other countries that we represent. But at the same time, we are actually launching a little banner that's going to be on our website, and it's going to be basically it's going to call Designer Room, and basically you're going to be able to click in it, and you could just put in the dimensions of your room, and you're going to be able to drag buckets and lights and stuff like that, and basically
that will give you like an optimized where to put things.
Yes, because we get so many questions what can I do with this? What can I do with that? How I got this size, that size, and I'm like, well, I don't know how close you want the buckets to. I don't know how big you want your walkways to be.
Right.
So now we're just about to launch it now, and it's kind of like Fortnite. You're going to be able to just go on the website and play, and then you're going to be able to print it, and you're going to have now all of a sudden like a little design of what it is that you want to do, or if it's going to be small, if it's going to be big. We're going to have little avatars of lights, of benches, of buckets, of floodlights.
That's going to save time and money, because you're going to be able to design it at home on the sofa whilst you've finished your day doing your thing. You've got that time to set everything up and sort of almost test it before you put it in.
And that's the most important, because you limit yourself from buying things that you don't need.
Yeah.
And there's no other way of, you can't do construction with just showing up at the job site and pouring.
You got to have a blueprint.
You have to have a blueprint. So having a blueprint and knowing which way, it just makes your old days, we just used to, throw a whole bunch of pipes, PVC cutters, and start cutting away and doing what you need to do. Now,
fixing the leaks as you go.
If you can, So that's the whole thing. The innovation is incredible, and I'm glad to just be here in the UK.
Well, we're glad to have you.
Yeah, it's a little funny driving on the opposite side.
What about the roads? Everyone that comes over from the States say the roads are so small and so tight.
Well, yeah, I had a young lady tell me that yes, in the UK you have to drive neat. And I was like, I kind of understood what meant neat, you know, because I probably hit like about, I don't know how many curves, but while I've been here. And
I bet the islands are crazy though, aren't they? The islands just coming up to a roundabout or a junction. I bet it's like you don't know which way to look.
Well, you know what? I've spent a lot of time in Central and South America, so roundabout is kind of popular over there.
Okay.
But what I don't know is when I return my car at the airport, how many speeding tickets am I going to receive? I never knew that there was a camera. So, is it just one for all of them, or am I going to get one for every camera?
One for every camera, I think. I hired a car the other week. It's a hire car. I won't say the hire car company name. And I was driving down the motorway on the way down to London, and my phone kept on pinging, ping, ping. I was like, what is that, dude? What is that? But obviously I'm driving, so I can't look at my phone. Driving, I hear ping, ping, ping. I pull over at the services. I'm like, I've got to check my phone. I've got to see what's going on. What I didn't realize is, because it was a hire car, they have a black box. So every time you go close to the speed limit, it emails you to say you've gone. And then if you go over the speed limit, it emails you to say you could be in breach of your insurance. And then if you go over a certain percentage of that, they can shut the car down. So by the time I pulled over the services, I had like 36 messages. Obviously, I was doing the speed limit, you know.
Yeah.
It was all clear,
of course. We were always going to, just for the record, I was also doing the speed limit. It must have been something wrong with the cameras.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't know until too late, so now... when I see everybody, you know, I just follow everybody. You know, before it was.
I bet you was driving around thinking, "What the fuck are these guys doing?"
It's like why? Maybe they're not. You know, maybe they're not in a hurry to get anywhere. You know, I was like, or you know, this is traffic. I don't know.
This is England, you know.
So I apologize for the transit police, and when I get out of here, hopefully they'll let me out without having to hand over my company.
Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. So what's your Instagram handle again?
The Bucket Company.
And the website?
thebucketcompany.com.
Okay, and they can reach out anytime. They can reach out to you. Any questions they've got, they can email them through, DM you on social media.
Yep, and my phone number is 786-473-6484. So that's my personal cell phone. So
dude, when we put this up on Instagram and the ladies see you, your phone's going to blow up.
I don't know.
Blow up.
I think more of the growers and the guys that want some information might want to reach out to me. But, you know, I don't think about anybody else. But, you know, like I said, I take phone calls at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. Like I said, I love what I do, and this is why I'm here. I don't have my reps or anybody out here. There shouldn't be anybody here explaining the system other than the person that knows the system the best and created it. And in this journey, it's been a wonderful journey. I've been, you know, not only with George, the engineer, and the doctor, my fellow friend Skeet, he's very old and ill, and, you know, he's down in Miami, and he has been one of the biggest mentors in my life. He has basically, you know, grabbed me and taught me the world and how the world works. Shipping, you know, logistics, and, you know, packaging. It's such a big, you know, thing to learn. And everybody thinks it's just about plastic. And, you know, you got to first molds and, you know, what kind of a steels and this and that. And then, you know, logistics. Can I put them in a box? Can I put enough of it? Will it be sellable? Will everybody be happy with their margins? So it's a long, long road, and just to get to this point and to be in the countries. Oh, and I apologize, VJ. We're also in South Africa.
Right.
I'm my distributor, VJ. I'm so sorry, VJ. You know, this is actually one of my few podcasts I've ever done. So hopefully I can get better as things move on. But you know, I was very impressed that, you know, and just shocked that, you know, all of a sudden now we represent and we're in so many different countries, and we're talking about from January up to this point. And for me, you know, that just gives you the validation of what you've created.
Yeah, 100%. You're the captain of the ship and you're driving it and you're pushing it. People buy off people and cream rises to the top. You've got a quality product. And I think this is just the beginning. And as well as that being the company, you're bringing everyone as well with you. So you're supporting those families. You're giving people job.
Yeah.
You know, in the States, here in the UK, you know, you're funding families around the world with your product. So thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you for your time. It's been absolutely awesome speaking to you, Frank. Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure's all mine. And I'm thanks, and I'm happy to see you again, and I'm happy to see you again this
Well,
weekend.
you'll see, yeah. Well, so it's the Hydroponics Expo this weekend, and it's at Stoneleigh here in the UK. So shout outs to James at that and Product Earth, and I'll see you there. Thanks again for your time.
No, thank you for having
Awesome.
me. Respect.
Thank you, Frank Escabado, for that fantastic conversation. Give them a follow on their social media at thebucketcompany.com, and go and have a look at their website, www.thebucketcompany.com. Give us a like and a follow on our Instagram account at thehydrochronicle.com. Give us a rating, and please subscribe if you're interested in listening to more of the podcast. Big thanks and shout outs to Frank again and everyone at the Bucket team. They're doing a great company, and go and follow them on social media too. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Make sure you subscribe to us, and we'll see you next time.